Incredible discovery. Police officer exposes the touching sacrifice of a 6-year-old in the snow. The wind howled through the narrow streets of Willow Creek, a town seemingly frozen in time and snow. Officer Jake Thompson, bundled against the biting cold, was conducting his routine patrol when he spotted something unusual on the roadside. His heart raced in that moment. There, barely visible under a thick blanket of snow, was a tiny figure. As he approached cautiously, it became clear, a little girl named Lily, no older than 6, stood alone, clutching a ragged backpack while her small hands trembled around an old teddy bear. Jake knelt beside the child, his instincts screaming alarm. "Hey there, sweetheart. What are you doing out here all alone?" His voice softened, but inside, he was struggling. Seeing a child in distress shattered his heart, igniting a flurry of emotions he wished he could contain. Lily looked up at him, her wide blue eyes shining with fear and determination. "I'm getting food for my brother," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. His breath caught in his throat. The innocent sacrifice of this young girl ignited a torrent of conflicting feelings within him. How had it come to this? How had a 6-year-old found herself shouldering such an immense burden? "Where's your mom?" Jake asked, but he could already feel the answer clawing at him. "She's sick," Lily replied, her voice trembling. "I had to help him." This selfless act, this profound sacrifice sparked fury in Jake toward a system he believed in, one that had failed this little girl and her family so brutally. As he took in her frail figure, he couldn't help but wonder about the cold realities buried beneath the picturesque facade of Willow Creek. This incident, though a singular moment, was part of a larger, darker tapestry of suffering that had been woven into the very fabric of his community. Doubts flooded his mind. Was being a good officer enough in the face of such relentless need? Before he could form a response, he recalled important notifications about the state of the social safety net that plagued families like Lily's. He could feel it weighing on him like the heavy snow blanketing the ground. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake's heartbeat echoed inside him like a drum, filling him with urgency. He couldn't simply report her situation and go home like it was just another day on the job. No, something had to change. But the complexity of his duty raged against the quiet, chilling revelation that he was tackling more than he could manage. In that moment of anguish, Jake faced a fateful choice: extend his hand to help Lily and her brother or abide by the confines of a duty that felt increasingly hollow. Torn, Jake wrestled with that moral quandary. He felt the weight of the badge he wore, a symbol of justice, pushing down on him. Each breath he took felt thicker with the pressure of unspoken truths lurking in shadows. As the snow continued to fall around them, he was overwhelmed by the reality the hero he yearned to be was trapped in a storm of doubt and moral dilemma. The stakes had never felt higher. Could he truly protect the innocent while appending the indifference he now recognized? The warmth of connection he felt with these children battled against the cold realities of a community unwilling to see their struggles. And as he looked deeply into Lily's hopeful eyes, the choice lingered: what would he risk to protect the innocent? Would he confront the heartless systems to deliver justice, or would he let fear dictate his silence? Jake's mind raced as he gazed into Lily's innocent eyes, the weight of her situation crashing over him like waves in a tempest. Instinctively, he felt the prick of tears behind his eyelids, a feeling he had long suppressed during his years on the force. The chill of the air exacerbated the fire igniting within him, a fire fueled not by rage but by an unrelenting desire for justice. As he took a deep breath, something shifted in his perspective. This was no longer just an encounter, it was a calling. An unspoken understanding formed between him and the child. He needed to step outside the rigid boundaries of his role and become more than just a guardian of law. He needed to be a protector. But how? "Lily," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady, "I don't want you to worry. We're going to get you and your brother the help you need." He scanned the neighborhood, weighing his options. The nearest shelter was only a few blocks away, but the thought of dragging Lily out into the snow again felt unbearable. There had to be another way. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as the urgency of his responsibilities settled in. He reached for his radio, contemplating whether to call for backup or to take matters into his own hands. The dilemma encapsulated the essence of his growing frustration: standing by as a silent observer or taking action as a devoted protector. He wasn't just a police officer, he was a human being who refused to look away from suffering. "Do you have any family nearby?" he asked, trying to keep Lily's spirits up. "Anyone who can help?" She shook her head, her gripping fear radiating from her small frame. "Just me and my brother." The realization sank deeper. One child's bravery came from a desperate need, not from a hopefulness found in the safety of familial care. He clenched his fists, fueled by not only the desire to help but also by the fear of authority's failure that had led her to this moment. He reached for the private line of communication he was allowed to use, an emergency contact list he rarely invoked. The options flashed through his mind. Would anyone take him seriously? Would they understand the urgency he felt? The fleeting doubt was soon drowned by a sense of determination. To wait would be to betray Lily. Stepping aside, he took out his phone, his hands shaking slightly. "I need to connect with social services," he whispered to himself, bolstering his resolve. As brightly as her innocence shone, there was also a darkness lurking around them, a community filled with shadows that needed confronting. Unexpectedly, the sound of distant sirens began to echo through the winds. Another anomaly stealing his attention, it dawned upon him that every moment spent hesitating pulled him further from the resolution he craved. Maybe there was a way to harness the very system that seemed to trap him. Maybe he could be the anomaly this time, to reform rather than comply. With each passing second, his decision solidified. Jake glanced back at Lily. "You're not alone anymore," he promised. The decision marked a profound shift within him. A realization clicked into place: he could use his position, not just to enforce law but to broker change. Yet, in that same breath, he felt the looming shadow of skepticism. What if he succeeded on a micro level but failed to enact the substantial transformation he longed for? As he dialed the number, his grip tightened. The echoing sound of the sirens was growing closer, but that was not a signal of something foreboding. It was a chance, an opportunity to confront the status quo in a town that desperately needed to see beyond its snowy facade. But as the phone rang, Jake understood this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. Because the harder fight was not just against a broken system, it was against his own deeply embedded beliefs about what it meant to serve and protect. The question loomed as the line connected: could one man truly spur change amidst a tide of indifference? His heart said yes, the stakes had never been this high. And he was ready to find out what it would cost him. As soon as the voice at the other end of the line answered, Jake's composure sharpened. He didn't allow the anxiety creeping into his awareness to guide their exchange. "This is Officer Jake Reynolds," he stated, forcing an ounce of authority into his tone. "I have an urgent situation involving 2 children in need of immediate assistance." He relayed the details, each word meticulously chosen, as if laying the foundations for a lifeline. Yet as he spoke, he could hear hesitations in the response, the bureaucratic pushback that arose from such discussions. They needed more information, more background protocols that felt in direct conflict with the desperate urgency of the moment. The skepticism from those accustomed to waiting scenes rather than acting sent stabs of frustration through him. "Their names are Lily and Sam," he pressed, ignoring the doubtful silence on the other end and focusing on his own growing resolve. "They are scared and alone. Time is slipping away." He could feel the weight of Lily's gaze on him, an anchor tethering him to the commitment he had just made. The warmth radiating from her small hand, almost frozen and trembling against the cold, reminded him that this wasn't just an abstract case, it was a life hanging in the balance. As he hung up, Jake felt the rush of adrenaline. A part of him wanted validation that he had done the right thing, but he also sensed that they would need time to act, time he feared they didn't have. His hands clenched and unclenched unconsciously, a reflection of his internal battle. But he wasn't just waiting, he was in a race now. "Lily," he murmured, kneeling to her level, "I've called for help. They should be here shortly." She nodded, though doubt clouded her expressive eyes. "Will they really come?" He caught the tremor in her voice. Her vulnerability hit him hard, as memories of countless times he had repeated assurances before were overshadowed by the gravity of the moment. "Yes," he affirmed, trying to inject certainty into his voice. But even to him, it sounded more like a plea than a promise. His mind churned with thoughts, fighting against a sense of helplessness that threatened to twist his resolve. He couldn't afford to burn out before the battle had truly begun. So, he initiated a mental inventory of the resources at his disposal. Could he engage the local community in a more impactful way? How could he leverage their response team to advocate for Lily and Sam rather than another bureaucratic delay? While he envisioned this potential, a siren song of guilt echoed within him. Today was a testament to his failures and limitations, a slalom course of inadequacies he had navigated for too long. Why had he not been more proactive? Swaths of children, concealed by shadows and voices long silenced, were waiting for someone like him to shift the paradigm. But every thought reverberated with a new question: how much of himself was he willing to sacrifice for them? This wasn't just about one case, it was about crafting a new narrative for himself as well as for the children he swore to protect. With every pulse of his heart, the realization solidified: he needed to capture the attention and respect of the system to make real change. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled him from his internal dilemma. A team of his fellow officers arrived, faces both familiar and yet strained by the responsibility that loomed over them. They immediately shifted into procedural mode, calling for the children to step forward. Jake's insides twisted. He realized at that moment that while they were his allies, their long-standing ways could clash with his newfound vision. He could sense an impending confrontation brewing not only with the establishment but within himself. As they began assessing the situation, the juxtaposition of compassion and protocol laid itself bare, pulling at his convictions. The cold, professional demeanor that emanated from the officers mirrored the chilling air around them. Jake knew that assertively protecting Lily and Sam meant challenging his colleagues, maybe even dismantling the very way they had always done things. With determination building in his chest, Jake cleared his throat. "We need to rethink how we approach this." And as he spoke, he recognized the pivotal moment just before him. The time had come to face not only the system but also the ghosts of his own beliefs, and he would lead the way. The journey was only just beginning, and the stakes had never been higher. What would emerge from this confrontation? How far would he push against the currents of tradition and practice? As the words left his mouth, silence enveloped the group. Jake could feel the incredulous stares of his colleagues, unsure of their footing in the moment. He could sense the collective tension, each officer struck by the abrupt departure from protocol. Thoughts raced in his mind, the fear of rejection clashing with the responsibility bearing down on him. He clenched his jaw, forcing his resolve to the forefront. One officer, Detective Martinez, stepped forward, brow furrowed in skepticism. "What exactly do you mean by that, Reynolds? We have procedures for a reason." His tone was defensive, protective of the established order they had all adhered to for so long. "It's about them, don't you see?" Jake replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "Lily and Sam need urgency, not red tape. If we waste time waiting for approval, we risk not just their safety but their lives. We can't let bureaucracy dictate the human element of our jobs." Martinez didn't respond immediately, and the other officers shifted uncomfortably. Jake's heart raced, the possibility of isolation brewing. Yet as he looked at Lily, still clutching his hand, the gravity of her situation propelled his determination. He refused to retreat into the expected. It's time we act. We have the training, the intuition, everything needed to address this without dragging it through endless channels. These kids deserve more than to be mere statistics. Jake's voice rose, fueled by a mixture of adrenaline and passion. The group exchanged glances, weighing Jake's urgency against the weight of their habits. Deep down, he could sense the flickering hope in their eyes, a yearning for something beyond mere adherence. "All right, Jake. Let us take your approach, but you lead," Martinez finally conceded, an edge of reluctance still present. "But you better have a solid plan." Jake felt relief wash over him, mingled with the lingering doubt that they would indeed follow. "First, we gather as much intel as we can from their surroundings. We need to know where they came from, if there's anyone else involved." He began strategizing, mentally drafting the steps they needed to take, all while trying to suppress the fear that this was a one-time chance. With nods of acknowledgement, the officers began moving quickly, readying themselves to mobilize a search for the children's home. Jake remained grounded in his newfound role. Thoughts of authority no longer outweighed the urgency of the task at hand. The blood pumping through him seemed to ignite his purpose, but he was elated to discover something deeper than determination underneath the chaos. As they began interviewing neighbors, Jake caught glimpses of their distractions, witnessing the disbelief in the eyes of many. It dawned on him that this was more than a simple rescue operation, it was a chance for growth. Each rejection of the norm felt like peeling away a layer of his doubts. He was becoming someone who could challenge both the system and himself. But the moment was fleeting. A sharp cry echoed from a nearby direction, laced with panic and distress. Without hesitation, Jake sprinted toward the sound, aware of the resolve growing within him. As he rounded the corner, he was met with a young woman, trembling and wide-eyed, pointing toward a snow-covered alley. "It's them. I saw them hiding there," she exclaimed, her voice quivering as desperation took over. Jake turned to his team, adrenaline igniting a sense of collaborative urgency. "Let us go," he shouted, rallying them into action. As they delved into the alley, dread mingled with determination. The stakes had risen sharply. Somewhere in the depths of the snow-laden corridor, Lily and Sam could be hiding, and failure was not an option. Jake felt the familiar tug of doubt, but he had fully embraced his evolving identity, a protector ready to unearth any obstacle that lay in his path. What awaited him at the end of the alley? Would he find the children, or would he confront an even greater challenge that might redefine his journey? Jake's breath hovered in the cold air, forming wisps of steam as he rounded the corner into the shadowed alley. The muffled sound of his team's heavy footsteps rang behind him, but his focus was consumed by the urgent task ahead. The youth in distress had lit a fire he hadn't known existed, and now every nuance of the moment seemed amplified. The alley was lined with abandoned trash cans, their metallic edges glinting ominously under the dim light. Snow crunched beneath his boots, each step a reminder of the precariousness of their mission. He pushed back the intrusive thoughts that whispered doubts. Failure was not an option. "Cover the exits," he instructed his colleagues, veering slightly to observe every dark corner. His grip around his flashlight firmed as he scanned the icy terrain, a confluence of instinct and training guiding him. Nothing mattered more than finding Lily and Sam. Within minutes, a faint whimper broke the cold silence. It was timid but unmistakable, stirring an innate protector response within him. Jake moved quicker now, heart pounding not just from the exertion but from the boiling determination to bring them back safely. The children had been cornered not just by physical barriers, but by fear and circumstance. They deserved a world more compassionate than the one he had occupied in uniform. The familiar walls of protocol grew distant in his mind, replaced by a nuanced understanding of urgency, one that bridged the chasm between procedure and instinct. "Jake?" Detective Martinez's voice cut through the haze of focused adrenaline, snapping him momentarily from his thoughts. "You're the leader here. You've got to tell us how to approach this. Jake paused, contemplating the importance of his emerging role. It was more than mere tactics, it was about cultivating trust, both from his team and from the potential of their shared success. Let us regroup, we'll utilize a two-pronged approach. I'll approach from the left, while you take the right. Signal if you spot anything. As he moved carefully, every creak of snow beneath him echoed his resolve. The light from his flashlight flickered against the walls, casting waves of shadows that danced with every turn. He was no longer simply an officer. He was stepping into a leader's shoes, confronting the fears of both his colleagues and the thin line of humanity they all strive to protect. The distance between him and the sound of whimpering narrowed, each step carving into Jake's mental resolve. It was a revelation, a burst of clarity striking him amidst chaos. He was not just running toward danger but toward a profound opportunity to redefine his own purpose in this profession. Suddenly, he saw movement. There, tucked behind a mound of snow, were two small figures. Jake dropped to his knees, his heart racing in a mixture of hope and trepidation. Lily. Sam. It's okay, I'm here. You're safe now. No sooner had the words left his mouth than he felt a weighty dread enter his chest. What if they didn't believe him? What if their fear had spiraled so deep that they could not trust his intentions? The children didn't emerge, instead, fear gripped them tighter, and Jake understood that the challenge ahead was not only searching for them but also assuring them of safety. I know you're scared, he said softly, his voice a balm against the wall of silence. I promise you, I won't let anything happen to you. The moment hung fragile in the frigid air, testing both his resolve and the children's belief. Jake's breath quickened, but spurred by an unwavering need to connect, he cautiously sat back, exposing vulnerability, a tactic he never expected to employ but recognized its necessity now. Suddenly, a loud clatter shattered the tense atmosphere. From a hidden corner of the alley, a figure emerged, cloaked in shadow, and Jake's instincts shifted again. What awaited him now loomed larger than the children's rescue, a confrontation that threatened to dismantle everything he had worked to build. The question loomed, could he navigate this unexpected adversary without losing sight of his newfound principles? As the shadow moved closer, Jake braced himself. The time had come to face not just the danger present, but the man he was becoming. Jake's heart hammered in his chest, not merely from fear but from a dawning understanding of the moment. The figure emerging from the shadows held the promise of confrontation, an encounter that could threaten everything he held dear. He forced himself to breathe steadily, his mind racing with strategies even as his instincts blared caution. Stop right there. He called out with authority, positioning his body between the children and the advancing shadow. It was a man disheveled, with wild eyes that flickered with uncertainty. Was he a threat or simply another soul desperate for a warm embrace on this cold, harsh night? Get away from them, Jake pressed, his voice echoing off the alley walls as he took a step forward. The man halted, glancing at the children then back at Jake. Their trembling figures inched closer together, seeking comfort in each other's presence. Please, the stranger said, his voice low but filled with emotion, I'm not here to hurt them. I just want to help. The crowd of police officers behind Jake was growing impatient, their silhouettes framed by the halo of flashlights, each awaiting his command. Jake hesitated, grappling internally. Was this man truly a benevolent protector or a harbinger of violence? Why should I believe you? He challenged, pushing aside the doubts that clawed at his mind. Trust had always been a delicate balance in his profession, but in that moment, it seemed even more fragile. However, the hesitant response of the children drew his attention. Their eyes reflected terror, not just from the stranger but also from the situation they found themselves in. He remembered his purpose, safety and protection, and realized he was tasked not only with confronting external danger but also with understanding the roots of fear. I was running from something too, the man continued, his words trembling like the snowflakes falling around them. I thought if I could find shelter, I might be able to save them. I just want you to know the truth. Jake studied the figure before him, analyzing every twitch of his body, every inflection of his voice. Here was a man, perhaps flawed, battling his own demons. What was so profound about a life of struggle was that it often mirrored the very things Jake sought to fix. "Tell me the truth," Jake said, his tone softening. "Why were you near them?" The man inhaled sharply, his facade cracking. "I heard them while I was hiding. I didn't want them to suffer the same fate as." He swallowed hard, his vulnerability spilling over. "I want to save them. I just need to convince you that I'm not the enemy here." Jake's resolve softened as he absorbed the man's raw honesty. For the first time, the scene before him transformed. It was no longer about standing apart as enforcer versus transgressor but rather about finding common ground amidst trauma. "Maybe I can trust you," Jake said slowly, weighing his options. "But first, you need to prove it." He glanced back at Lily and Sam, who remained on the ground, their wide eyes scanning him and the newcomer with a blend of hope and fear. As he reached for his radio, he realized the moment called for a bold decision. "Detective Martinez, I need you to maintain perimeter security and keep nearby civilians away." "I'm bringing this man in," he instructed, feeling the weight of leadership settle on his shoulders. In those fleeting moments, Jake recognized another shard of his evolving identity, a protector who embraced the complexity of situations, unafraid to see beyond black and white. He stood there balancing his role as officer and as human, intertwined in a reality that demanded empathy. "What happens next?" the man asked, his question laden with desperate hope. Jake locked eyes with him. "We uncover the truth together. But remember, trust needs to be earned." As he began to guide the man toward the children, the gravity of a new question hung in the air. Would he find the courage to not only act but to also inspire trust within others, particularly those who had already lost so much? As they moved closer to revealing the hidden narratives, entwined in the snowy silence, Jake felt an urgency swell within him. The real challenge lay ahead, not just within the uncertainty of this moment but in facing the depths of the transformative journey that awaited him. How would he reconcile this new understanding of humanity with the life he had led until now? Jake led the way through the shadows, every step thicker with possibility and the heaviness of impending revelation. Jake's instincts screamed for both caution and compassion as he walked towards the man, a fragile figure squashed beneath the weight of desperation. Each step felt like a negotiation, not only between authority and potential threat but also between the hard resolve he had worn like armor and the burgeoning empathy that now coursed through him. He could sense the tension from the officers behind him, their breaths releasing puffs of vapor into the frigid air. His previous directive rang in his ears: maintain perimeter security. Yet, in this unconventional situation, Jake felt the need for connection outweigh procedural formality. The man's eyes darted to Jake, then to the children, as if he were anchored by the weighted bond of their mutual fear. It struck Jake profoundly. What strings bound their fates together that cold night? Shadows of hurt hung around them all, stories unspoken yet palpable. "Tell me your name," Jake prompted, both to break the silence and to invite some semblance of humanity into their interaction. "Derek," the man replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to scare them. I just wanted to protect them from what's out there." Jake nodded, aware of the pervasive feelings of vulnerability in that alley. "What do you mean?" He felt his mind pivoting, eager to unearth the layers of Derek's plight. Each question was a probe into the darkness that encased them. Derek opened his mouth, hesitating, the flicker of fear overtaking his courage. "There are things people who don't care. I've seen it happen. Kids like them, left behind." In that moment, a spark ignited within Jake, a deeper understanding of the unyielding nature of trauma. It wasn't merely about protecting against immediate threats, it was about battling the monsters that lurked in the shadows of their pasts, even when those shadows were formed by the very city he pledged to protect. "Have you been in that situation?" Jake asked, deliberately lowering his voice to a more conversational tone to ensure Derek felt safe. The shift in his approach surprised him, as he uncovered a latent eagerness to connect rather than command. Derek inhaled sharply, the tension in his shoulders easing just the slightest. Yeah, too many times. You start running, and you don't stop. Always looking back at what you left behind. Jake contemplated his own journey. Hours spent navigating the thin line between duty and humanity, weighing the costs of his decisions. He realized that to lead was also to bear witness to hardship, not merely as an observer but as someone who's willing to engage it head-on despite the risks involved. Listen, he continued, I'm not asking you to be brave for my sake or theirs. I just want to know what I can do to ensure they are okay. Derek seemed to absorb the weight of that question, staring hard at the children huddled together, trusting and wary at the same time. Jake followed his gaze and, in that moment, an idea flickered in his mind, a strategy that required vulnerability from everyone involved. A plan emerged deep within. It blossomed from a simmering determination to become more than just a law enforcer. It would be an opportunity for transformation. If he could help Derek voice his struggles, perhaps it could also protect Lily and Sam's innocence. Let us get them out of here first, Jake said. Then, we talk about what we can do next. The urgency surrounding them became palpable as they prepared to step back into the chaos of the unfolding night. Jake felt a swell of responsibility as he took the lead, navigating again through the balance of conflict that called for vulnerability intertwined with strength. With Derek's assistance, they approached the children. Jake squatted down to their level, adjusting his demeanor from imposing officer to concerned companion. Hey, guys, he began gently, gauging their responses. As Derek stepped alongside, unmistakably softer than before, Jake recognized a singular truth: by extending compassion, he was demolishing barriers. He could feel the warmth of hope press against their collective fear. But lurking beneath the drive to unite their disparate lives was another truth: the deeper connections they were forming could either strengthen their resolve or unravel the very fabric of their courage. And Jake suddenly understood, he was standing on the precipice of something significant. Would bringing their pain into the light truly reshape their narratives, or would the shadows loom larger in their entwined stories? As he helped Lily and Sam to their feet, their small hands gripping his for safety, he felt the burden of not only their fears but also their potential for healing pressing down on him. Each step back towards safety bore the weight of a critical choice ahead. What new revelations awaited them all as they stepped out of the shadows into the glow of streetlights? Would this newfound alliance spark a complicated truth, revealing connections deeper and more profound than any of them anticipated? As they stepped into the illumination cast by the flickering streetlights, Jake's heart raced. The night air was charged not just with the cold but also with the palpable tension that clung to each moment. He was moving beyond the rigid expectations of a police officer. He was now deeply enmeshed in the human experience of fear, trust, and hope. Let us move quickly, Jake said, his voice low but firm. He felt Derek's anxious presence beside him. Was this their shared purpose? To navigate this precarious terrain of safety and vulnerability together? Lily and Sam squeezed Jake's hands tighter, their small bodies pressed against him. He could sense their fragility, the way the weight of their innocence rested on him. This was deeper than just protecting children, it was a quest to shield and mend broken spirits. As he walked, Jake's mind sharpened, torn between the pressing need to maintain authority and the growing urge to connect on a human level. What are you scared of? He unexpectedly asked Derek, a question propelled by the warmth of their shared survival. It shattered the noise of the city, exposing a raw silence between them. Derek shifted uneasily, casting a glance toward the exit of the alley. The streets don't care about stories. You can become a ghost in plain sight, just another number, another narrative lost. I've watched too many disappear in the cracks. His voice trembled, but it became steadier under the steadying gaze of Jake. Jake wrestled with this truth. Were these children merely numbers in a pie chart somewhere? He couldn't let that happen. They deserved to have their stories told and acknowledged. Each footfall echoed his resolve, a new determination blossomed within him. He needed to not only protect but also empower. As they approached the entrance of a nearby diner, the cheerful glow spilled warmth onto the sidewalk. It was a stark contrast to what lingered in the night air. Maybe they'll feel safe in there. Let us talk to them, okay? Jake suggested, hoping the distractions of food and warmth might ease their collective tension. Wait. Derek halted, an unexpected fierceness in his eyes. I want to share something with them first, something they should know about hope. The urgency in Derek's voice resonated within Jake. It was a golden moment, a chance to show the children they were not just victims of circumstance but participants in their own journey. Jake nodded, moving to frame their presence, allowing Derek to step forward. Kids, Derek began, kneeling at eye level. You have to understand something. You are stronger than you realize. Even in darkness, there's light. Like fireflies illuminating the night. I need to tell you about the time I was in a similar place. I learned that bravery isn't just about fighting, it's also about reaching for help. Lily's eyes widened with curiosity, while Sam's grip relaxed a moment, intrigued by the rise and fall of Derek's voice. Jake watched as Derek unfolded his narrative, each word a powerful ember igniting connection. The children leaned closer, captivated not only by the content of his story but by the emotions attached to gradual transcending of fear through vulnerability as a tool of solidarity. Jake's heartbeat softened into a rhythm that matched the children's breaths, acknowledging the poignant moment where healing began. This discussion was not merely a diversion, it was the multifaceted understanding of life's complexities they all needed. Jake felt the mantle of responsibility shift, encasing not just his duties as an officer but his role as a facilitator of growth. But as the trio listened, an unsettling undercurrent rippled through Jake's thoughts. He sensed deeper struggles lurking beneath the surface of Derek's story, questions yet to be explored. What scars did Derek carry? And were they related to the darkness threatening to consume the children? Jake's resolve crystallized further, he was prepared for the risk that lay ahead of them. He would not only confront external threats but also uncover internal battles within himself and those who were leaning into his leadership. As they began to step into the diner, the vibrant noise contrasted sharply with the intense discussion they had just shared. Would the warmth of community envelop them or would it expose them to something more revealing? The path ahead was layered with uncertainty, and Jake felt the weight of unspoken truths pressing against his heart. Were they ready for the revelations that lay within? What sacrifices would they need to make to protect their emerged camaraderie from the encroaching shadows? The diner's door swung open, welcoming them into a world buzzing with conversation and the scent of fried food. Jake felt a wave of warmth wash over him, momentarily eclipsing the gnawing anxiety that had nestled in his chest. The walls, adorned with photographs of happier days, felt like a collective narrative of joy reaching out to them. Yet, deep down, he knew that the warmth could only go so far in dispelling the chilling fears they carried. As they settled into a corner booth, Jake's eyes darted among the bustling patrons. Families huddled together, laughter punctuating the air, but their joyous sounds felt discordant next to the gravity of his mission. He shifted his focus back to the children. Lily, wide-eyed, stared at the menu as if it were a treasure map. Sam hesitated, glancing nervously at the strangers around them. Jake leaned in, lowering his voice to a comforting whisper. You both okay? This place feels safe, right? At that moment, he felt the tremors of uncertainty move through him. Could he protect them from the menacing shadows that lingered just outside the diner? Derek broke the silence with a chuckle, his demeanor visibly brightening. Order whatever you want. It's on me. As the children's faces lit up, Jake noticed some tension melt away. Yet, he knew Derek's smile only masked deeper emotions. His bravado was a fragile shield, one Jake desperately wanted to explore further. With orders placed, they allowed themselves a moment of respite. Lily's laughter, rippling through the air, was a balm. Yet, beneath the surface, Jake's pulse quickened with questions. What had Derek faced to be so willing to offer hope so openly? How deeply did the darkness reach into his life? Just as these thoughts churned, the soft, almost ethereal sound of a child's voice echoed from across the diner. A girl no older than 6 sat with her grandmother, her small hands gripping a stuffed animal as she recounted a story animatedly, her eyes sparkling with innocence. Jake's heart clenched. This was everything he envisioned for Lily and Sam, a world devoid of fear, where hope felt tangible. But shadows loomed. He had seen enough to know that innocence could easily be wrapped in a fragile cocoon, one that could rupture under pressure. It was the fear of rupturing that led Jake to immediately question if he could provide that stability, whether he could ensure that these children knew their strength amidst uncertainty. Jake's gaze flickered back to Derek. "Tell me about the moment that hope changed for you," he urged, realizing this inquiry was a necessary step to dismantle Derek's facade. Derek opened his mouth, paused, and then looked away toward the window as crushing silence settled. Jake took a breath, recognizing the delicate nature of their situation. This moment wasn't merely about Derek's story, it was about their collective journey toward healing and empowerment. The children's fidgeting brought Jake back to reality. "It's okay, Derek. I'm here." "You're safe," he offered, adjusting the weight of authority he carried, steering it gently toward empathy. Derek finally met his gaze, and there was a flicker of vulnerability between them, an understanding that formed a thread of connection stronger than either anticipated. "There was a time I thought I was not enough," he began slowly, the words cascading from him as if they had been waiting for release. Jake leaned in, feeling the intensity of the moment crystallize around them. Here, amidst laughter and warmth, they faced their fears head-on, daring to confront the unspoken demons lurking in shadowed corners of their lives. Would this act of bravery be enough to illuminate the next step on their path? Before Derek could continue, a sudden commotion at the diner's entrance caused Jake's senses to spike. A group of rough-looking men stepped in, their laughter cutting sharply through the forgiving atmosphere, a stark reminder that safety was a fleeting illusion. As they surveyed the room with predatory eyes, Jake felt the remnants of their fleeting moment of warmth slip away. What would happen next? Would their fledgling bond endure, or were they about to be thrust into confrontation yet again? Jake experienced a chilling sensation. This was no longer just a night spent in the diner, it felt like a pivotal crossing into territory he could no longer guarantee safety. As their eyes met and Derek's narrative halted mid-sentence, Jake understood one undeniable truth: the night was far from over, and fresh revelations were on the horizon, threatening to redefine their journey. The men moved deeper into the diner, their presence a stark contrast to the warmth surrounding Jake, Lily, Sam, and Derek. Jake felt an instinctual urge to shield the children, a protective reflex that surged from within, intertwined with the responsibility he had embraced moments before. This wasn't merely about policing anymore, it was about standing firm as a guardian of those who needed it most. "Derek, stay close to them," Jake instructed, lowering his voice to a whisper. He tucked Lily and Sam in closer to him, ensuring that they felt his reassuring presence. Each passing second heightened his awareness something had to be done. After all, he was no longer just an officer, he was a protector determined to confront the storm clouding their sanctuary. As the men approached, Jake scanned their faces, recognizing some hidden disdain woven into their laughter, a sentiment easily read by someone who had seen too much. He inhaled slowly, measuring the tension bubbling beneath the surface. This was not the calm, easygoing diner he had thought it was a battleground over which he now had to assert control. One of the rough men, broad-shouldered with a harsh smile that festered uncertainty, ambled over to their table. "Look at this," he said, leaning against the edge. "A little family reunion right here." His tone dripped with a hint of menace that set Jake's pulse racing. "Not interested," Jake replied coolly, meeting the man's gaze with unyielding resolve. "We're just having a meal. If you could step away, that would be appreciated." The man smirked, unfazed by the assertion of authority. "Looks like you've got yourself a real band of misfits here. Kids, it's not safe for you to be with him. You can come with us, we'll take care of you." His words slithered, weaving a dangerous charm that threatened to ensnare the very innocence Jake fought to protect. Lily pressed against Jake's side, her body trembling slightly, while Sam's face turned pale. Jake felt that familiar knot of anger stir, and this time it catalyzed his resolve instead of paralyzing it. "I said step away," he repeated, his tone now sharp enough to cut through the laughter pooling around them. "The tough cop act is real cute, officer," the man retorted, leaning closer. "What's gonna happen if we refuse?" Jake's heart raced. This wasn't just about establishing his authority, it was about ensuring the safety of Lily and Sam, about showing them the light of bravery in a world that often shrouded it in darkness. "What's going to happen is that you're going to leave us alone," he said, lowering his voice, "or I'll make sure you wish you hadn't stayed." For a heartbeat, the air in the diner stood still. Tension crackled like static. The laughter around them faded, banks of onlookers holding their breath. Then, the abrasive man straightened up, misplaced bravado waning as the seriousness of Jake's tone set in. Jake seized that moment. He needed to act decisively, not out of anger but from a place of resolve. "You don't want to threaten this family," he continued, inserting a note of authority, "and you definitely don't want to challenge the law. It won't end well for you." Finally, the man assessed Jake, the badge, the fervor, the unwavering glare, and perhaps something switched under the weight of that responsibility. With a huff, he gestured to his companions. "Let's get out of here, boys." "Not worth it," he grumbled, rounding up the few who had followed him. As they backed away, Jake released a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The tension seemed to ebb, slowly replaced by relief, though the warmth of safety still felt distant. "Are you both okay?" Jake turned to Lily and Sam, and the flicker of fear in their eyes stung. They nodded but remained glued to their seats, eyes wide. Their innocence had faced a harsh reality in mere moments. "Trust me, you were brave. You did well," he assured them, trying to restore their sense of comfort. Derek, who had remained by their side, spoke up, his voice steadily rising above the aftermath. "You see, kids, that's what bravery looks like. Standing strong in the face of fear." He glanced at Jake, an unspoken gratitude shimmering in his eyes. Perhaps in this moment, they had unearthed a deeper connection than just two men from separate lives brought together by circumstance. As the remnants of the tension lingered, a realization washed over Jake. He wasn't only a guardian for those two children, he had reshaped his own identity through this crucible of conflict. He understood vulnerability as a source of strength, and as Derek spoke further with the children, encouraging their bravery against the backdrop of adversity, Jake became acutely aware of a powerful truth: every action, every choice made that night mattered. He leaned in closer to hear Derek recount his own story of bravery. Jake realized they could serve as allies not just in confrontation but in cultivating hope and change. This wasn't merely about one night, this was about forming a new narrative bound by trust and purpose. As they resumed their meal, amidst laughter and engaging conversations, Jake felt a weight lift off his shoulders. The encounter had taught him that it was not enough to protect at a surface level, he needed to empower, uplift, and create alliances that shone a light on the darkness of community struggles. Emerging from this confrontation, a new understanding settled within him. Transformation was a journey littered with confrontations. It was not just about enforcing rules, it involved confronting one's own fears and biases. Jake had walked a path littered with shadows, only to emerge into the light, recognizing that true strength lay in vulnerability and collaboration. When they finished eating, and the sun dipped below the horizon, Jake felt a renewed determination burn within him. It was time to embrace the path forged from courage and community, and to stand unwavering against challenges to come. "Let us make sure these kids know their stories matter," he whispered to Derek, whose subtle nod promised solidarity in the journey ahead. Together, they would carve a new path for themselves, one where hope illuminated their surroundings, erasing the shadows one step at a time. Jake felt gratitude swell in him. He was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, not just as an officer but as a true protector, a man on a quest for justice even in the face of an indifferent system. This was just the beginning, and the future held the promise of change. As they stepped back into the world, a world filled with both struggle and hope, Jake knew that they were equipped to confront whatever lay beyond, together. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Join us as we explore the power of overcoming adversity and nurturing hope.